Corey, Sean, and Mikey have been friends since grade school. Their lives have been filled with many ups and downs. They have shared similar life experiences, strengthening their bond through the years. Only recently have they found their lives to be repetitive and unexciting. To break the cycle, Corey proposed that they do something to spice up what was already a mundane lifestyle. While the crew makes plans, far off on the city's outskirts lives a quiet little family of 4. The Merrills have lived in their home for many years. It was an old family home passed on from generation to generation. From the outside looking in, there isn't much that seems out of the ordinary. The current family of 4 consists of the father, Luke, the mother, Soray, and their 2 teenage daughters, Rhea and Rena. Life for the Merrills is comfortable and as normal as anyone can tell. Rhea and Rena attend high school, which is closer to the city. Luke and Soray manage the family business, which is a mix of property management and real estate investments. Their day-to-day as a family seems mundane on the surface, but the Merrills harbor a deep, dark secret. Something they've kept locked in their basement for years. The crew, Corey, Sean, and Mikey, finish their master plan. Through their source, a high school classmate of the 2 girls, the crew has their eyes set on the Merrills' home. The classmate told the crew that the Merrills' home is huge and they probably have a safe in the house. Piquing their interest, they figured the job would be far enough and quiet enough for them to sneak in and out in the dark of night. Settling on the plans, they set out with their tools and weapons and begin their journey. An eerie silence fills the car ride until Sean breaks it and asks if anyone's seen the new sneaker drop. A simple no from Corey and Mikey returns the car to silence. Uncomfortable with the silence, Sean, riding in the back seat, leans to the front and attempts to turn the radio on. Mikey smacks his hand away and tells him they don't need any distractions. Pulling the vehicle up the long stretch of road that leads up to the Merrills' home, they park and turn the car off. Mikey lights up a cigarette, takes a few puffs, and quickly tosses it out the window. Sean smacks Mikey on the shoulder and tells him it could start a fire because he didn't put out the cigarette. Annoyed by Sean's accusation, Mikey turns around and punches Sean in the chest. Corey makes them stop and quietly points at the house. He tells them to get ready and to stick to the plan. At home, the Merrills have already settled in for the night. The girls are in separate rooms and their parents are in another. Like most teenagers, the girls are awake and on their mobile devices checking their social media accounts. Meanwhile, Luke and Soray are soundly asleep in their room. All seem quiet and normal, like most nights. But tonight, the Merrills are being paid an unexpected visit. Each grabbing a weapon of their choice, they quietly make their way up the road. The darkness covers their movements as they draw closer to the home. All is quiet until the hoot of an owl startles the crew. Perching high in the grand tree next to the house is an owl. Corey turns to the guys to be quiet and points at the owl. They shake off the fright and continue to find their way into the home of the Merrills. With little to no effort, Mikey manages to open a lower-level window and enters the house. Slowly and quietly, they make their way inside. They find themselves inside a small room. Corey leads the way and ushers the other 2 out of the room. Finding their way down a long corridor, they prepare their weapons. They begin to split up and make their way around the house. Mikey makes his way towards one of the girls' bedrooms. Corey and Sean go upstairs and head towards Luke and Sory's bedroom. Corey puts his ear to the door. He can detect the faint sounds of heavy breathing and a low, repetitive snore. Corey turns the knob of the bedroom door and slowly enters. They begin to rummage around the room when suddenly, a loud crash can be heard from downstairs. Mikey is fighting off one of the girls who snuck up from behind him unexpectedly. Corey tells Sean to go downstairs, and as he does, Luke and Soray are jolted out of their slumber. Gasping from shock and fear upon seeing Corey standing over them with a shotgun, Luke shudders for him to not harm them. He tells Corey that he can have whatever he wants. Corey tells them to get up. He forces the couple to head downstairs. At the bottom of the stairs, the Merrills can see the other 2 assailants shoving and tightly tugging at the girls' heads to push them along. Luke screams, asking them to let them go. Corey strikes him on the head and tells him to pipe down and to keep walking. They all make their way to the living room, and the family is thrown to the floor next to one another. Soray attempts to get closer to her daughters to ensure they are okay. The girls are quiet and appear to be calm. but their eyes tell a different story. Sorey looks into Rena's eyes and knows that behind them is a desire to do something to ensure the family's safety. Sorey lightly shakes her head and silently hints to her daughter not to make any rash decisions. Sean moves closer to the girls and caresses Ria's hair. Rena pushes her body full force and knocks Sean over, and she screams at him not to touch her sister. Corey steps in and shoves Rena back, and Mikey moves Sean away from the girls. Luke begs and pleads for the crew to let them all go. His pleas go unheard as the crew continues to ransack the home. Finally, Corey approaches Luke and demands to know where the safe is. A confused Luke doesn't respond, and Mikey strikes him in the head with the butt of the gun. Corey repeats himself, but this time he threatens to shoot one of the girls if Luke doesn't respond. Knowing there is no safe, Luke hunches over in despair when Rena shouts and tells them the safe is downstairs. She gives them a fake code and tells them it's behind a large broken wall. Sorey glared at Rena in disapproval, but Rena continued her rant. She then tells them it's behind a hidden door. Corey signals for Sean to go down there first. A scared Sean questions why Corey picked him to go downstairs versus Mikey. They both start to shove Sean and force him to go down to the basement. A reluctant Sean pauses at the top of the steps but proceeds down the dark stairwell. While Sean makes his way to the basement, the rest of the crew holds up the Merrills at gunpoint. An awkward silence creeps over the room when a loud crash suddenly can be heard from the basement. Corey signals for Mikey to go check on Sean. Mikey starts to jog down the steps, calling out to Sean. Standing before a broken wall, Sean waves at Mikey to come over. He tells Mikey he heard a sound coming from the wall and decided to tap on it, and then suddenly the wall started to break and crumble. Corey shouts towards the basement asking for an update. Mikey yells back up saying that everything is fine. The two stand facing the broken wall when they suddenly hear the faint sound of a young child crying. They glance at each other with eyes wide open. Mikey looks around the basement and finds a sledgehammer. He tells Sean to move back. Mikey raises the sledgehammer and breaks the rest of the wall down. They both take a step back and see a hidden door with a prominent lock behind the wall. Sean backs away and tells Mikey they should let Corey open the door. He disagrees and quickly starts to strike the lock with the sledgehammer. After a few strikes, the old lock comes undone. Sean and Mikey take a step back as the door slowly opens. They both arm themselves in case something lunges at them. With each new inch revealing the darkness, Sean and Mikey sweat with anticipation. Sean nervously aims his gun at the door when suddenly, a low, almost whispering sound of a young child saying, "Hello," can be heard. Then, slowly emerging from the door, is a young child. The two share a look of shock and surprise. Mikey enters the room and sees a bed and other furniture, but there is no safe. He shakes his head and tells Sean that Corey will be upset. They usher the child upstairs. Corey anxiously waits for the two to return. When they reach the top of the stairs, Sean yells out to Corey that they found something interesting. The young child enters the living room, with Mikey and Sean following behind. Corey immediately grabs the child and demands to know who the child is. The crew talked amongst themselves, saying the contact only mentioned 4 family members. Mikey explains to Corey that the child was locked away behind the hidden wall and that there was no safe. The Merrills also talk amongst themselves, but a newfound fear is written across their faces. The child in the room has quietly walked off to the corner of the room and is watching the Merrills intently. Finally, Corey breaks away from the conversation and walks over to the child. He leans down and starts to ask the child questions, but with every question asked, the child begins to smile. Rena quickly interjects and tells the child to kill the intruders and that they are there to harm her. Shocked by the outburst, Mikey slaps Rena across the face, and Corey tells him to get a rope and tie the child up. But before he could even finish his sentence, the child releases a high-pitched scream that causes everyone in the room great agony. The crew clutches onto their ears as the Merrills beg to be untied. Sean raises his gun and attempts to shoot at the child but misses. The scream stops, and the child walks over to the Merrills. Sorey screams at the child and demands for the child to return downstairs. But the child lifts both arms in the air, and with a flick of the wrists, Sorey is engulfed in flames. Rhea and Rena scream in horror as Luke rolls away from Sorey and tries to tackle the child. Stunned by the events, The crew quickly gathered their belongings and rushed out the front door. As they sprint outside, they can hear the screams of horror as the child continues its reign and torture of the Merrills. As they get to the car, they quickly fire up the engine, but with each key turn, the car would refuse to start. Fear and panic begin to overcome the crew. Corey tells Sean to go outside and check the engine, but a scared Sean refuses. Mikey volunteers, but before exiting the car, they see the child walking towards them from the distance. Sean and Mikey scream and holler at Corey to try turning on the car again. After a few more times, the car finally starts to turn on. Corey backs up the car as quickly as he can, without looking back. The vehicle is whizzing its way through the dark roads. Every bump and curve is taken hastily as the crew escapes the terror. But little do they realize the terror has never left them. The young child is sitting quietly in the back seat with Sean. When they realize the child is in the car with them, Corey makes a sharp turn, and the car goes tumbling down a deep, dark ravine.
Please like and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to click on the bell icon to get new video updates.